first actual empowerment session. I appreciate everyone for coming out to join us today. My name is Shakrita Murray, and I'm the founder of Empowering People to Overcome. And just to kind of let you guys know, my passion is to see people overcome in life and not be succumbed in life by things that happen. And so that's truly what the motivation behind this is. And the name of our session today is Empowered to Live. And so by the time you guys leave this building, I am hoping to empower you with information that can truly help you overcome. And in essence, when you handle your personal life, it will automatically liberate you in your work life. So this definitely comes under work development, and you'll find that out as we proceed. Because you're probably going to start thinking, I know I work with somebody like that. It's like, I know what she's talking about. Okay, and just to kind of give you some backdrop on the organization, we were birthed as a quiet vision that I had some years ago. But you ever had a vision and you just never knew where to go with it? And I've done a lot of little things, and I just never could, I just didn't really feel right. I had a lot of different ideas. I'm like full of ideas, and I would walk out with different things and carry out different things, and it just seemed like it just wasn't it. And then all of a sudden, after I went through a few things a couple years ago, my life changed. And I was in a relationship that wasn't the best, and I was married, and everything kind of turned down for me as far as a little bit more bad behavior that took place from my ex. And it really caused me to think about my life, and it caused me to think about purpose, and it caused me to kind of think about why people do what they do. And especially when God's involved, and you got church involved with certain things, and I'm just finding that people are people no matter where you find them. But it's about a journey that we have to take and a path that we have to choose in order to truly live out what God put us here to do. And so that's what pretty much motivated me to do this. And then, like I said, it's pretty much balanced life in hopes to increase work development and work-life balance. This is a disclaimer, just to let you guys know what you hear today. If you're easily offended by religion, we are definitely covered by our First Amendment. So we are here to, you chose to come in, and I appreciate that. And you can choose to leave if you choose, so it's okay, never hurt my feelings. But I just do this to let everybody know that, we're definitely a Christian organization. But I'm not here to preach as many would think, which is why I'm choosing to do it outside of the ordinary church facilities for that reason. Because when people really want to grow, they seek education. They don't seek a good feeling. They don't seek a cool song. When they really want to grow, they're going to seek things that help empower them with information. And so that's why I'm here. House rules. Please mute or turn cell phones off. Please save all questions until you're prompted, until you're asked. And we are recording, so I would ask that you be mindful of that and keep our voices kind of low. Little man over there, you're gonna be good. It's all good. He's like, why are you talking to me? You're good. That's my nephew over there. Isn't that cute? He's just adorable. He's what, 3, right?
Yeah.
I think he's 3, yeah.
He was 12.
Well, he does look a lot older than what it is. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is what is empowerment? Let me get my notes here. What is the purpose of this empowerment session? And our purpose is to understand that we were born, as I said earlier, we were born to overcome in life, not be succumbed by life. And that's a huge thing for us to understand. Our objectives are to learn what it means to be empowered, learn the 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 1 equation for living out an empowered life. Learn what it means to live with liberty, and learn what hinders our ability to live empowered lives. And these are huge deals, as you will find out. What does it mean to be empowered? Okay. The definition is having a knowledge, confidence, means, or ability to do things or make decisions for oneself. Now pay close attention to this definition. Verb, do. Do. Things or make decisions for oneself. We have been empowered to do for ourselves, to make decisions for ourselves. In order to live an empowered life, one must understand who they are, and one must understand they have been basically given empowerment with liberty. And see, these two things are coupled together. You really can't have one without the other. Because if you try to take one, then the other one diffuses. So the other one gives leeway to the other. So you have to have both. What is liberty and why is it so important? The definition of liberty, and I literally got this from the Merriam-Webster, and I wanted to put that up there so you guys who are taking notes can, if you want to jot that down, please feel free to do so. It's the quality or state of being free, the power to do as one pleases. Now pay close attention to that, because where you go is really what you choose to do. Freedom from physical restraint, the positive enjoyment of various social, political, or economic rights and privileges, and the power of choice. It's a privilege. What God created in us, being choice, it's a privilege. And so many, oftentimes, especially within religion, I notice, they give it up. They give it up a lot, a whole lot. Liberty equals choice. God created humanity with the power to make choices. Growing up, I grew up very religious. And I say religious because with Christ comes liberation. There wasn't a whole lot of it. There was a lot of rules, regulations. There was a lot of talk about the spirit realm, dealing with, you got your demons, you got your devils. But everything was always someone else's fault. People didn't really take responsibility for themselves. And so one of the motivations, again, for me doing this is to help people be empowered. In the beginning when God created us, He created us, like I said, with choice. And when we stray from these things, you end up living your life so under burden of addictions. You end up living your life under burden of so many different things because you just don't know who you are. When you know who you are, you know what to do. And that's the essence of true empowerment. Liberty gives the person making the choice the power to think for oneself. Liberty gives a person an authority over their choices. That's how they have to go together. Can't have one without the other. What do we have to understand about ourselves before we can make good, empowered choices? There's a lot more, even with those of us who are, Christians, and there's any faith. I'm always open to anyone to come to these things, because by the time we finish, this is just one. I have other ones that's going to go a little bit deeper with other things. But I want people to understand the true essence of really who Yeshua is, but all the other religions and what they mean, and I think we need to be fully educated on all aspects. Because if we're not, you end up going through life, sometimes with your belief system trailing a whole lot of different beliefs that cause confusion. There has to be those clear lines. We must understand the 1 + 1 + 1 equals equation. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 1 equation for life. This is an amazing thing when you guys recognize this one. What is the 1 + 1 + 1 = 1 equation for living out an empowered life? Identify, understand, and be aware of all 3 parts of who you are. You know what I find in this generation? A lot of the kids today, they're so focused on their physical person, how they look, who's looking at them, who's interested in them, everything is exterior. I'm going to go to school, I'm going to do this. Everything's exterior, about showing everybody who you are on the outside. But yet there's 2 vital parts of who we are that tends to go ignored. And it's our spirit and our soul. And then in order to live a full life, you have to understand all of who you are, not just the one part. Why are we created with 3 very intricate parts? In the beginning, when God created the earth, He created humanity in His image. The image of God is made up of three well-balanced, intricate parts. Every human being was formed by God, embodying each intricate part. Spirit, soul, body, all equals one person. And if you notice, and those of you who are familiar with the Bible, when you read in Genesis, it actually tells you when God was creating everything, he says, I'm going to create man in my image. Which is why, henceforth, Jesus came in the image that he came. Because it was something about the image of humanity that God saw fit to create in his image. So that's something to think about. That's a huge deal, even for our self-esteem. Wait a minute, God saw fit to make humanity, and he made me in his own image? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That should make you smile when you look in the mirror when you think about it. The spirit, soul, and body are all intertwined. Each one has its own identity, attributes, purpose, and characteristics. What is the purpose of the spirit? The spirit is the life of who we all are. The spirit is the essence of the core of our atmosphere and the circle of energy that surrounds us. Our spirit is the heart of who we are. Our spirit represents a strength outside of oneself. Our spirit is our connection, I like to look at it as an umbilical cord, to the realm of the spirit where good, being God, and evil dwell, being the devil, being evil, dwells. When God created the spirit, he intended for our spirit to remain connected with his spirit and reflect his characteristics forever. Humanity made a choice to disconnect, and this is why it's so imperative that we as people look in the mirror. Sometimes we need to take a moment to just look in the mirror. And when you look in the mirror, not only will you see the fact that, wait a minute, I was created in God's image, which you should be smiling about. You'll look in the mirror and you'll look at your life and you'll see one or two things. Now, one thing happens where things happen to us that we can't control, and I understand that. Like when we're kids and we're abused or you're molested by someone and someone steals your innocence away. We can't control that at all because it happened. We're the innocence of a child. We don't have, things happen. I know for myself, I've been through things. Couldn't help what somebody else chose to do to me, but it was their choice to do what they did. But I can make the choice to overcome what they did. And that is the beauty of empowerment. Understanding that I don't have to live my life as a victim to someone else's choices towards me. God created me to overcome these things and not be succumbed by these things. Because again, we can't control what everybody else does, but we can only control what we do. What happened that caused a disconnect? Humanity chose to respond to what was pleasing to oneself without regarding the consequences for that choice. Everybody asks why a person can become a pedophile. Because it's pleasing to his eyes. He chooses to go after the innocence of a child because it looks luxurious to that person. Is he operating in choice? Actually, he is. We all have a choice. You can either do good or evil. It's your choice which side you stand on. But at the same time, you're empowered with the same choice, whether you use it for good or whether you use it for evil. But that's all up to you to make that choice. God's spirit reflects his characteristics. And this is I want you guys, if anyone can jot this down, that's great. But I want you to really pay attention to these characteristics. Understand, God's characteristics have absolutely nothing to do with humanity's characteristics. His characteristics, because of our fall and what we went through, his characteristics stand alone. In order for me to reflect any of these that's here, even more than this, I have to now open my heart to know him so that I can acquire his characteristics. Humanity's characteristics disconnected from God equals no power, no revelation, no liberty, no empowerment, low self-esteem, void of true confidence, tainted, selfish love established on what is pleasing to our emotional triggers, our good deeds with strings attached to attract attention either from God or from others. Now these are the three parts here. We got our soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions. This is where we're going to get interesting now. The mind is where we think, reason, process our thoughts, and make decisions. What is the purpose for our emotions? Our choices are motivated by our emotions. Our emotions are rooted in what we believe. Our emotions equal our motives. Our motives are the underlying triggers for our emotional responses. So basically, every time something happens in our lives, there's a trigger that can trigger a thought, that can, send us back. And so these are the areas that we have to understand how they work. So that way we can take authority over these things when we're tempted to go back to whether it's addiction or no matter what that vice in our life has become, we have to know our why. We have to know our motive. We have to know why we do what we do. That's imperative. And then we have our will. Our will is motivated by what we believe. And it is our beliefs motivated by our emotions that pulls our will to sway back and forth between good and evil. See, we're basically like given the choice. We have so much control over the game called life. We do. But because of the fact that we're spiritual beings, our vessels are worn like a glove, either by good or by evil. But it's up to you and who you will yourself over to that will define who you are and where you're going and what you're capable of doing as well. Now we're going to talk about the human body. The human body is very intricate and detailed creation. And I just kind of give the synopsis of the human body. It's our frame, our skeleton. You see here like a crazy guy with the picture. That's how we be looking at me in church, right? So our frame is our skeleton that acts as our frame. Excuse me, our skeleton, our bones make up our skeleton that acts as our frame. That frame is covered with our muscles, our veins. So basically our body has a lot of different intricate details within itself. Our physical body it's amazing when you actually, just see the anatomy and how it works and how it functions. And of course we have that skin. And that skin is what's going to attract people to us. When we're single, we're looking for that right person. We're like, man, what their skin look like? What they look like? You know what I'm saying? So we're looking for the packages. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we catch the package before we ever catch their soul. You know what I mean? It's like we look at somebody, oh, he cute, and then he get over there like, ooh, but his soul, oh my gosh. It's like, and you start running out of the way, or you kind of, end up getting with somebody, and you're thinking like you're really in love and everything, and then all of a sudden the whole stuff start unveiling in front of you, like, oh God, what was I drinking at that moment? I gotta go. And it's like, and sometimes some of us really were drinking at that moment, and we got sober after, like, and then you get, y'all know where I'm going with that. So now, okay, the human body, some things we have to know about the human body. The human body is capable of defying gravity. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, he looks like he's about to hit it on the other side, and I would like, that ain't gonna happen for me. There's no way. But you know why that won't happen for me? Because my mind has already told myself, you ain't gonna do that, girl. You better go sit down. You ain't even gonna go talk about jumping now. You better sit and jump to one side and, don't do it. One curve to the next is about as far as I'll go. But to this guy, he's defying gravity. That means our human body can do whatever we believe it can. That's how gymnasts do what they do. Because they do what they do because their mind. You ever seen how high these girls go when they're doing their gymnastic stuff? I mean, it's amazing what they do. Absolutely amazing. Now check this guy out. The skateboarder. That is awesome. Back in the day, guys don't laugh at me. But back in the day, when I was younger, we lived in California. That's my brother over there. And he was born in San Diego. Well, we had an alley that we used to go hang out in. And I was a skateboarder back in the day. So I took my little skateboard, but I didn't really like to stand it too much. I like to drive it like it's a car. So I would like sit down with my friends and be like going. Well, I bruised my knee up so bad. My leg was like totally scraped, like long on my shin and my leg. But man, I had a blast learning how to skateboard. But the things the guys would do, and some of the girls who were out there, what I saw was amazing. And there was nothing that stopped them because they believed that they could do it. So they would watch guys like Tony Hawk, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of the cats that was really good dealing with skateboarding and the X Games and all that. And so they would watch these guys just go after it, you know, but they believed that they could do it. They allowed their bodies to defy gravity. They allowed their bodies to do it because they pushed their bodies to the limit because they believed they could. So belief is a powerful thing. That's what makes a man do this kind of stuff. Look at the one girl there, or guy, he's jumping from one rock to another. That rock looked like it's pretty far away to be jumping. And he don't even have on one of those little things that you're supposed to have on when you're doing all that. He's like totally out there, no safety net. And that guy, I'm like, what is up with that? It's like, wow, that's awesome. Our body could do that, but some of us like to eat popcorn and watch other people do it. That's how we do it. It's like, for entertainment, right? Okay, the human body is the home for our soul and spirit. That's what makes our body so awesome. Because not only does it have physical attributes, it also has our soul and spirit as well. Our body is heavily reactive to the condition of our soul and spirit. The state of our soul will also determine your physical health. This is something, the handout that you guys got when you guys came in, let me grab my handout here so that y'all can see how that goes. This, as you can see the title of it, it's anxiety and depression, linkages with viral diseases. Now, y'all are probably thinking, how does that work? Well, there's another book that I read, and it's called Deadly Emotions is actually the name of the book. And it's by a doctor, his name is Dr. Colbert. And in that book, he basically talks about different people who would come into his office and how they had underlying soul issues, which we're going to get into. And their underlying soul issues were basically hindrances for their physical health. And the hindrances in our souls that stop us from living an empowered life are stuff like this. Offense. When we're constantly remaining in a state of offense and we can't get over it. You know, I've been through so much in my life, and I can honestly tell you I've forgiven all of my ex-husband. I forgave him, you know, because truth be told, when you start thinking about what another person goes through, and even though there's no justifiable reason why people do what they do, that person went through things in their life that caused them to respond the way that they responded, and they chose to go the wrong way. So what is it for me to now hold a grudge towards that person? Understand that that person's human like I'm human. I'm just making a different choice not to do what they did. And so for me, mercy is basically understanding where somebody else is coming from and showing them that mercy. Because we don't know what pains that, when we think we went through something. Some of these people that's going around here hurting people, y'all, they've really been through it. And it's showing in their relationships, it's showing in their response to life. And so the more I think like that, the more easier it becomes for me to forgive. I say the one thing that I told myself over and over when I got out of that marriage and, you know, very disgruntled about it and very upset about it, but I'm like, you know what, I can't make a person give me something that they don't have. If they don't have the love to give me, I can't tap it out. You know, I always say this, if I'm looking for $20 from someone and all they have is $5, all I'm gonna get is $5. I can bang, I can chime, I can shake them, you're only going to get what they have. You can't get anything else out of it. And that one thing, that one thought in my mind honestly made it much easier for me to forgive my ex and everybody else who's done me wrong in my past. Because you realize you can't draw water from an empty well. You'd be standing there getting mad at the well and screaming and hollering with echoes coming back up because you're just not getting it because it's not there. It's not there. We just have to learn that. It helps. Jealousy. Now these some of y'all like, okay, how's she bringing this under work development? This is huge. Because when you're working and you have someone who's in a position and they're doing their work and you come along and you may be really, really good at whatever that thing is, well, that jealousy there comes into play. Well, wait a minute, I'm going to try to do what I can to hinder her from going forward, because if she goes forward, that means they're not going to pay attention to me. And so these things affect not only our personal life, but they also affect our work life.
Yeah.
And I think all of us at one point or another has come into contact with someone working that pretty much, look at this one. This is a big one, pride and rebellion. The reason I put them both together, because they both kind of come together. Because pride gets to the point where not only will you not acknowledge that you need help when you're going through something, that's really the core of it. That rebellion will also make you buck up at authority when you're working. Someone's trying to give you something to do, and instead of you doing what they're asking you, you're going to go do it the way you want to do it, which is not according to the policy. And then people end up a lot of times being released from positions because they operate just like this. They won't budge. It's either their way or the highway. You drive with people like this, and then they want to use their signal, and they be always getting in accidents, and it's everybody else's fault but theirs. It's like, because they're fighting the world. It's like they're fighting the world all because of that. All because of that. And so what do they end up doing? They don't live an empowered life, because these things take up the space. These things hinder us from living an empowered life. And in order to really live an empowered life, you have to deal with these things. Because if you don't, it will deal with you, and it will ruin your work career. It will ruin your relationships. Everything good that you need in life, it will ruin. This is what I found what people are doing. People who aim to make a whole lot of money, they become partners with that cash. And so now that cash becomes their protector. And so sometimes they're like, everything's money, 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 money. So now they're operating in a lot of this stuff, but because they have all the exterior working for them, oh, I can't see how messed up I am. Because everything, I got businesses, I got this, I'm successful, I got that. But whoa, when you get around them, you gotta they gotta almost pay you just to show up. So you're gonna have to give them money because I don't really like you. It's like, because you rude. And it's the truth. It's the truth. So people find things to cover so that they don't have to deal with this. Just like our natural body has a heart, our spirit has a heart as well. From birth, we live our lives with no awareness of our authority given to us by God. How can humanity retrieve the ability to see our gift of empowerment and liberty? Yeshua. Now, the reason why I'm using the name Yeshua has a lot to do with educating people on the man that we call Jesus Christ. Now, I grew up calling him Jesus Christ, and one day I heard somebody say Yeshua, I was like, who that is? It's like, because I was like, okay. It's like, his name is Jesus. And don't get me wrong, that's his translated name. But in America, we're not, this is what I'm learning ever since, like I said, ever since I went through what I went through, it caused me to educate myself about everything. My relationship with God, what he really asked of me, people, everything. And one of the first things I did was I turned to the Bible, of course, and I started asking some questions. And God led me, he's been leading me on a journey that has been literally liberating my life tremendously. And I have a book, one of the door prizes was Liberated Love. My brother here got it, but I wrote that book. Hear the Sound and Confessions and Hear the Sound was written a little bit ago. Those books were, but Liberated Love is just like, wow. Would you hold your book up for me, please, so they can see it? That's my newest book. Yeah, that's my newest book. That one I released before. Yeah, that's Confessions. Yeah, Confessions and Hear the Sound. Yes.
I like that.
Good. Thank you. So that one, I talk about a lot of things, but learning just the simplicity of Jesus' real name. We translated it to Jesus Christ. Christ means the Messiah, and the anointed one, and of course Jesus has a lot of different meanings. You have Emmanuel, different ones, but it basically means the Messiah, and that the Jews will look at him as a Messiah. How can we embrace what Yeshua did and receive our empowerment and liberty? One, we have to acknowledge that God's standards sent through Jesus Christ are better and more wiser than ours. First thing to really embracing who Jesus is understanding Jesus is not just a concept. And a lot of times religiously, we make him this concept of ideas. We put his labels on it, and we tab $1 to it, and then we make it as if this is the only thing that God's involved in, is making me rich, giving me whatever I ask for, and then we end up living like that past life in church, which happens so much. In my book, Liberated Love, I talked about that, and people kind of don't know, to see their faces when I say it. But one of the things I said in there was, I feel like I've lost more people to religion than I've actually seen in liberation. And that's disturbing when you get a little young. I'm not that young, but I'm not that old, but you know what I'm saying. It shouldn't be that way. Because the very person of Christ reflects his characteristics that we talked about. And the whole goal of really walking in Christ is having those characteristics. Understanding who he is. And when we understand that, then we have to admit that we need to change to reflect those characteristics. I have to recognize, you know what, I'm rude. I'm just being rude. And I need to check myself. And sometimes we have our days, I'm not going to lie, we're human. We're human. Our humanity will never be moved. You know, a lot of times when religion gets involved, people think that you can save a person. And then before you know it, that person becomes good. The truth is, because of the fall, we within ourselves will never become good. The characteristics that we're going to always reflect are always going to be his. Because when we did fall away, we became blinded to who he is. And the goodness in which we once held within ourselves was basically we're blinded to. When Christ came, as we said earlier, all of a sudden our eyes opened. And so now we're recognizing, wait a minute, there is one good. And so in order for me really to live good, I have to be reflective of who he is and represent who he is. And I'll tell you what that does. It takes us out of selfishness. Because you have to think about it. Most of us are good because we're trying to get something. It's like as long as I can give this and I know I can get this back. And so most of us, when it comes down to our goodness, it always has a stream. That's just how we are. That's what humanity does. Okay? And so God's like, I know that's what y'all do. But that's why if you get your mind off of you and you put your mind on a higher cause, someone else outside of yourself, opening up your eyes to who God is and recognizing his characteristics of gentleness and love and peace and grace, those things now are like, oh, okay, so now when I have the desire to want to kill myself, wait a minute, I'm created in God's image. It doesn't work like that. I put the gun down. When I recognize that I have purpose and destiny, then I'm not going to go jump off that bridge. We're living in a time now where mental health is a huge issue. And it's pouring over into our workforce development massively. Because now we have people that live by what they're feeling all the time and not necessarily living by purpose, who they are, who God created them to be. And so these are the things that we have to do. And then the third one is we have to believe in ourselves and the fact that we can change and live. You know how many people, I'm going to stop right there for a second. I'll finish the sentence in a second. Change. You know people do not believe that they can change? There's old saying that says that the leopard will never lose its spots or something like that, right? You know, correct me if I'm wrong. What's up with that? So if you are, you know, you're walking through life with irrelevant crutches, so to speak, of all these beliefs, then how can you change if you don't believe you can? You just psyched yourself out. And so that one thing, that's that one crutch, whether it's that addiction, you just told yourself that you can't stop it. So if you keep telling yourself you can't stop it, guess what? You're not. That thing's going to keep on driving you and keep on running you and keep on, and before you know it, you're enslaved to it instead of you ruling over it. There's a story I'm going to share here that tells you how powerful God always intended us to be. You guys remember the story of Adam and Eve? In that story, they had two kids. They had Cain and they had Abel. Before Cain killed Abel, which was the very first death that ever happened, God told Cain these words. He said, Cain, I've given you authority. He didn't blame it. Tell you one thing about God. This whole devil stuff, when they fell away, God held Adam and Eve accountable. And then he cursed the serpent to basically being on his stomach. But he did not curse the serpent for Adam and Eve's actions. Which is why a lot of times a lot of Christians end up living lack of empowerment in a lot of ways. Because everything is Satan's fault. Everything is the spirit. Because they don't know who God created them to be. They don't know their empowerment. And when you're in religion a lot of times, you're not taught Christ in the essence of character, in the essence of you being empowered, because the one part of our empowerment comes from us sitting on a pew. And when you're not in a pew, then you're not really empowered. But that's not the synopsis of life, because you're only going to be in the building like once or twice a week. You're going to be living life like 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot. So the behavior that we should be doing when we're in church is great. But to put the synopsis of, oh, God, it's only when I'm in here that I'm feeling peace, or it's only when I'm in here that I got this certain feeling, then you're just pretty much taking all of your authority and you're decreasing it to a feeling, which removes the essence of the stability and the weight that comes from, and the honor, honestly, that comes from empowerment. You just completely removed it without even realizing that's what you did. And I used to do that a lot until God woke me one day and said, wait a minute, that is what I did. I gave y'all empowerment. I gave y'all choice. I gave y'all liberty. Why are you not valuing what I gave? And who told you that this was okay? Then that's when I started thinking about all the people that I've been listening to, that I have you all up in church, rolling around on the floor and everything else, but when it comes down to making a choice, it's like, sure. It's like, well, that's the devil. I'm like, really? Well, when did he get involved in all this? You just did that. And then what the devil made me do, and I'm like, how'd that happen? You know what's funny? It goes back to the beginning again. When Eve fell, and she made the choice she made, you know who she blamed? The serpent. She blamed the serpent. And she knows she's the one who picked up that fruit later. But she blamed the serpent. Isn't that interesting? Y'all, when I started thinking like this, my little life started turning around. My mind started turning around. Something started happening in my life because I realized, wait a minute, God gave me the power to make a choice. So it's fine if you're going to go to church and fall around the floor. That's great. And I did it too. And believe, I get slain, I feel the Spirit, I'm going to go down. I understand all that. But when I get up, can I make a choice to be pleasing to God? Can I make the choices every day that's needed in my life? That's where it counts. And in conclusion, in order to live an empowered life, you must value your liberty and live attuned with your spirit, soul, and body. Self-awareness is the second most important state of mind, next to being aware of who God is. Your inability to live in a continual state of self-awareness will affect your relationships both on and off the job, as well as your ability to develop in the workplace, in the workforce. See, these are things that we need to know, because personally, I'm tired of watching a lot of people, especially dealing with people that come from the terms of religion, specifically dealing with Christianity, which I believe we want a relationship in. Religion is usually like our way of trying to get to God, and it really shows it is our way to try to get to God because we fell at it. It's like, you do. Like I said, when more focus is put on what you're doing for God and all these other things, then what that's telling me is we're not really embracing the fact that we've been accepted already. So anything I do good from this point, I do it because I love. I love God and I love people. All this here that you guys see, I put it together because I love God. I haven't even been receiving funds for this. I do this because I love people. And I'm tired of watching people live with no empowerment. I'm tired of watching people sit on the pew talking about Satan all day long. Like they have no will at all in the matter. Like they're just the victim to life. I grew up like that. That mentality, honestly, stole my parents away. That mentality stole my ex-husband away. Because he sat on the pew, completely disillusioned to who he was. Mother did the same. Felt ridiculous what I've had to deal with, dealing with religion. But then everybody wants to go and defend church at the highest without understanding that the church has a purpose. It has a purpose. But we disown that purpose when we don't adhere to the gospel that's supposed to be preached in that place. And the thing about this is, which I pray you guys walk out of here being empowered, is understanding where the soul comes in. Understanding how the Spirit works. Because what is it for me to basically stand here and tell you how Jesus can save you and all these things, but not give you the tools that you need to understand who you are? Okay, what is he saving? You got to know that you've got 3 parts. You got to know who he's saving. You got to know your weaknesses. You got to know your strengths. You got to know who you are. Because even when you're in the workforce, guys, most of the time, okay, what's your weaknesses? You know, what can you do? What are you not at? Or you have strong organizational skills? Someone's like, it's like, I don't know. You know, what are your skills? What do you do? See, this helps not only in our workforce, but in our everyday life. You know, this is what I want to give you guys a questionnaire, I should say, which is going to have some questions in it that I want y'all to answer. And we're going to roll into this section. It's like activity, actually. But I want y'all to go over. And you don't have to share your answers with me. I would like it if you give me something, but I want to make you guys think. That's what this is all about. I want you guys to think. There you go. There you go. Make sure this one's here. There you go. And here we go. And this is called Analyze Your 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 1 health. And with this, I'll read through the questions out loud, and I'll give y'all time to answer, of course. Do you believe you have a healthy soul? It's a simple yes or no. If you want to put maybe, that's fine. I didn't put that, but I could have. Because some of us are in the middle, we're like, I don't know. I'm kind of dealing with this right now. The next question is, if not, why do you believe that your soul is not healthy? Or, if so, why do you believe that you have a healthy soul? Now that you're going to be able to answer in your own words. So no. I'll be honest with you guys while y'all are answering. I always thought I had a healthy soul because I thought that, you know, I did all the things that they say you do when you're in Christ. You know, you may speak in tongues and you go to church and you feel the presence and, you know, I thought I had it okay until I discovered my soul and how broken it was and how I was not living according to the empowerment that Yeshua really gave his life for me to do. We go to the third one. What can you do to be more attuned with your spirit? Now, the word attuned there basically means in tune, like basically paying attention to it, acknowledging, recognizing. What is the state of your soul? You know, are you easily offended? Do you find yourself stumbling into jealousy a lot? And I tell you what, I didn't mention this earlier, but the main reason why we go through jealousies and stuff like that is because we don't have a vision for ourselves. That's what I'm saying. When you're working and someone's just trying to do you in because they don't want you to get, they're afraid you're going to get their position, or they're afraid that you're going to be promoted over them. The main reason why they're doing that is because they don't have a vision for themselves. When you have a vision for yourselves, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to live like that. Because you're confident. You know that you have a purpose. You have destiny that's inside of you. And because of that, you go and you do entrepreneur things. You're so busy out there doing what you do, being an entrepreneur, you don't have time to think about what the other guys are doing and who they are and how their business is doing. You're trying to better yourself. You're trying to better your business. You're trying to better to bring in more income. You're trying to advertise. You're trying to get your stuff out there. Because you don't have time to think about everybody else is doing. Because you have vision. Entrepreneur, I would have to say, has so much vision because they have to. Their livelihood is basically based on that vision. And without a vision, the business can't grow. Well, imagine taking that same concept into your personal life. Wait a minute. I have to have a vision for myself. I have to know that if I'm at this job, God is my job security. And I know that if I do the best I can, I'm going to make it. I know if I do the best, when it comes down to it, there's some things we have to understand that's on the back office of business that has a lot to do with budgets. And based on the company's budget, technically, is why they keep you. If they don't have the budget, that's why they let you go. So that's why when you even understand business, honestly, and understanding how that works will also keep a lot of us from being offended when we are let go from jobs. Because we're like, wait a minute, they couldn't get me. That's why they let me go. I don't have to get my feelings hurt. I don't have to take offense. I don't have to fall into rejection for a long period of time and make it seem like this was all I am is my job. No, you're more than that. Your job is just there to provide for you. Your job is there to give you what you need, to put food on the table for your family, to go on those vacations, or like my brother, to go on cruises. What's your name? You got 5 more coming up now? Is that what it is? Your job is to do fun things in life, leisure activity. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there to do. That's what your job is for. Okay, let's go to the next one. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you consider yourself to be spiritually aware? How aware are you of your spirit? When it comes down to voices, and voices are real, I'm not going to say that they're not. Because we all have a voice in our head. We all have one. It doesn't mean that we, not all there. We all have one. It just depends on what that voice is telling you, we'll put it that way. It's like, it's just, and by all means, I didn't mention this earlier, part of the disclaimer is, if y'all have doctors, counselors, medical doctors, I am giving personal information, and empowering people is not responsible. As a presenter, I say stuff, so, y'all got pills, take it, please. The rest of us have to understand that some people who are not really trying to live an empowered life, there has to be something out there to help that person to sustain so that the rest of us can survive. Because sometimes without medication for some people, it's not too pretty. It's true. When they're off of it, man, Johnny takes pill today. I mean, it's just, and some of us say that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Because sometimes people just need different things, and I understand that. I have people that I deal with all the time, and I understand that. But we have to also understand that a pill is not a cure for whatever the issues are. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of history while y'all answer the questions. I have a person in my family that stumbled into mental health issues. And do you know, when I took her to the doctors, I was new to all of it. I had no idea how all this stuff worked. And I asked the doctor, I said, well, how do you tell someone has had, how do you see this stuff with the brain? How do I know to be diagnosed with depression or diagnosed with mental illness? How does this work? The doctor looked into one of the best in the country, I would have to say. This was in Connecticut. Connecticut has some of the best mental health I've ever seen. Surpasses. I love Texas. I love my state. I'm a transplanter because I'm actually originally from New Jersey, so I'm a transplanter to Texas. But they, hands down, number one, from what I've understood. And she looked me in the face and she said, well, there's really not a way for us to tell. There's not a blood test. Remember this. We can't even really see in your brain and tell much. She goes, what we do is we take the brain of a healthy person, and we'll take the brain of a schizophrenic person or someone else who's going through things, and we just try to compare brain waves It's still theories yet, but this is like the only way we really can tell, and that's not really how we diagnose. We diagnose for physical symptoms, how a person behaves, what a person's telling you. They're hearing voices that's telling them to go off and kill themselves or hurt someone else and all these things. So this is the only way that the therapist and the psychiatrist can tell. They can't tell any other way. So what that's letting me know is understanding what I'm sharing today dealing with empowerment has a lot to do with our mindset. What we think, what we choose to believe has a lot to do with that. And as we crack down on things, understanding what it means to really be empowered, watch how many people start changing in their lives. Because now they're thinking to themselves, wait a minute, I don't have to live like this. I don't have to, I don't have to deal with this kind of stuff. I really can get through this. I don't have to live like this. Something starts taking place in our minds when you're empowered to say, wait a minute, I don't have to listen to this voice telling me to go and kill myself, or listen to this voice because the kids at school are bullying me and making me feel bad. I don't have to let them take authority over my life. I don't have to let those negative words destroy my hope. I don't have to let these people who don't like me for no apparent reason mess me over. How many of us have been there? People just don't like you just because. So you don't do nothing to nobody, you peaceful, you mind your own business, people just gonna be hating. People like to hate. It's just, that's their choice. That they're taking a choice, the same liberty I have, they have it too, but they're using it for evil. They're using it for wrong. And that's the issue. So my goal is, again, to try to help as many people not do that. Use the liberty God has given you for good. Be a blessing to someone. Help someone. And then you have question number 5. What do you think you need to do to be more in tune with your spirit? So if you feel like you're not in tune with your spirit, and you're just kind of like existing, God is there. Some of us are afraid of Him because we don't know what He'll do to us. And based a lot of times on your natural relationship with your father, any men in your life being women, we understand how this one goes. What we don't realize is if we've had negative encounters with men, that actually does affect our relationship with God, because God is yet masculine. And so you'll always associate Him with that, whether we mean to do it or not. It's just commonplace. I wrote a little bit about it in my book, Liberated Love. But a man is yet a symbol, not supposed to be. We can look at him as a symbol, but not supposed to be the one who sets my mind on how I'm going to treat God. We have to understand that just because a natural person makes some mistakes and treats us bad or do anything like that, doesn't necessarily mean that God's the same way. Because again, God and humanity is two separate, complete different species. You have one represents total divinity, perfection, everything, and then you have us. And in our fallen nature, imperfection, make bad choices is all we've ever known. So when you understand the two different sides, humanity is what I like to call it, versus divinity, two complete different concepts of thought, two complete different concepts of living life. And then you're empowered to know, wait a minute, it's not I who lives, but it really is God who lives inside of me. It really is Christ. I really can do this, not because of my own self, but because I know that I have a stronger strength. That's where the Spirit comes in. It recognizes your strength. You're stronger now. Now you can stand a little taller. Now you can hold your head up, even though you know your past. And we all have a past. Some of us are in stuff right now that we know we're struggling with. But once you understand who you are, then your responses in life are going to change. So that's what that's about, as far as just understanding your spirit and what happens when that happens. Then we have number 6. On the scale of 1 to 10, how is your physical health? Now see, understanding the other things, we can't neglect the physical. The physical is a massive part. Everything works perfectly together. All of it works perfectly together. So how do you feel like that is? On a scale of 1 to 10, you're going to put that there. And then, number 7, when is the last time you have been to the doctor? I play the Jeopardy music. Dun, 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 dun. It's the truth. God put doctors here for a reason. I'll tell you one thing. There was a video that I saw. It was on Facebook. And it was just going around on Facebook. And it touched my heart. A pastor was preaching. And while he was preaching, he literally fell over dead. Like literally. fellow there. I was astonished. And as you read on with the story, the guy had diabetes and I think a heart issue that he never knew he had. He never knew he had. All he had to do was go to the doctor. You know, there's ways to reverse diabetes. A whole lot of cool, healthy stuff that we can do. That's actually just an herb that got put there. Some is like holistics, just getting into that. And then when you get your doctors and they tell you stuff, you can take what they give you, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it all your life. There's ways to reverse things. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who used to be diabetic, but they took I think it was resveratrol and different things naturally to get on it. Again, talk to your doctor, let them tell you stuff. But I'm just saying, there's people out there who have ways to, to handle stuff like that. I know metformin's great, and I know the doctors give stuff like that, which is great. But some people, they take that and they also try to find other ways, holistically, to get, to improve their health. And then, of course, you have number 8. What steps can you take to improve your physical health? This is, I'm sure we all can answer this. Exercise, of course, we know is a great one. Some of us get up and go to the bathroom, and that's about as far as it goes. It's like, go to the bed and to the bathroom, there we go. So I hope this exercise is helpful. Everybody want to share their answers? You want to share, CP?
Sure, why not?
Can.
Which one?
Whatever one you want to share, whichever one you feel like you feel comfortable sharing.
Right.
I don't want to tell you because.
On number 2, it's about why do you believe you have a healthy soul? And I put yes. And the reason I put yes is because I literally know who I am in Christ, and I am confident in that. I'm always trying to take steps to. I have not arrived, but I know who I am, and without going deeper, I just know who I am.
Gotcha. Okay, I like that.
And I put Romans 8:1. That's been one of my favorite scriptures for years.
That's good.
So, done. What about number 5?
What do you mean, number 9 you added?
No.
I did answer that one, I guess I can say. I put 9 on do I consider myself spiritually aware. And then I put some of the things that I would do would be more so listening to God and then praying in the Spirit to grow that connection with our spirit and meditating on Scripture.
Yeah, that's actually good. What about you? You want to share anything? You don't have to. If you want to, you can.
No.
You're okay? Okay. That's one thing I kind of had it, but I didn't really mention it. I didn't mention the Bible some as far as the scriptures and stuff, but what I was trying to do was a lot of times when people go to church and they hear about the Bible, you can get drowned, and I know a lot of people who go to church don't even read it. So I'm like, okay, let's do this, and then as we grow in this, I'll actually be able to point out more verses and stuff to get you to meditate on those. But understanding is huge. Because I can throw a verse at you, but you don't have an understanding for that verse, it's going to be like, okay. So basically, without me really saying it, one of the slides up there dealing with the characteristics, that's all in Galatians chapter 5. And so as you read the Bible, you will find everything that I talked about today is in there. Except I put it more in a way of, so we can digest it. Sometimes we can read the Bible and it can be overpowering for our understanding. This is the biggest complaint I've dealt with people dealing with the Bible. And I'm like, okay, how can we do this to where I break this down for everybody to understand, and then on the basis of what this is, then when you understand, what this is, then when you read the verse, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Because now you understand, it's like, okay, now this is where I fit in. Because oftentimes we read the Bible, we're reading the Bible and it's like, okay, this is God's word. But then you have to understand that that word was for you. You have to take it personal. And you have to take those things in there and apply it, which is what this is doing. It's helping us apply that word, the living life that comes from the Bible in this, and is actually breaking it down so that we can eat it, nourish our soul. It gets us like, okay, I get it now. That's what this whole thing's about, empowerment. That's what God did at the very beginning, was He created humanity to be empowered, not to be living like this, you know. So that was the point of all this. And pardon me, I had more scriptures to actually speak, but my stuff got all messed up as far as I had a whole thing printed out and everything, so I just said I'll just kind of go like this. But I appreciate you mentioning that, dealing with Romans, because yeah, if you do have a Bible, I do think it's great to pull out, to read, and you know, simplify it. Don't make it too complicated, and also be very careful about the versions that you read, because they're, you know, things are getting interesting in the Bible today. So I always say NKJV is good. I think the English translation is not a bad translation. There's different ones. You have the Passion Translation, interesting. You choose to use whatever you want to use, but some of them they're actually removing the verses and stuff like that. I think the NIV. So just be careful with what you read. So we have to learn how to take the Bible as we can and break that thing down. Because what is it to know all the verses and where to find it, and then you can't live it? And so this hopefully can help everybody do that. Is there any questions? Y'all good? All right. Well, this has concluded our first empowerment session.
Yes, it was awesome.
All right.